Who's friends with all the night dreamers, talking to you at night? Gary on the radio, but maybe he's not in sight. Bigfoot's on his tail, flying UFOs, that's right. Gary's Talk Show Radio, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday nights. If you need a friend to talk to, he will always be there. The Night Dreamers Talk Show will fix your despair.
Hey, this is April, the Psychic Housewife of New Jersey. Listen to Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary Anderson.
Now, the latest news from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom. I'm Guy Ticker, NDTR News Director, Anchor Reporter, and Panda Fluffer. Woman found living in Michigan grocery store sign, complete with computer and Keurig for nearly a year. A woman was found living in the rooftop sign of a family fare grocery store in Michigan and had been there for about a year, according to police. The woman had flooring, a computer, a desk, a printer, and a Keurig. Police in Midland were notified about the woman living in the small space that hosts the supermarket sign after contractors working on the roof found her there. The space was 10 to 15 feet long, 5 feet wide, and approximately 8 feet tall at its highest point. After police made contact with her, she was advised that she was not allowed to live there. She was formally escorted from the store and was provided with information on services within the area. However, she did not wish for any of those. The woman, who police are not identifying, left without incident. Police found that she'd been living in the space for approximately 1 year, but it's not clear how she was getting up onto the roof. She was not formally charged. In other news, Papua New Guineans, genetically isolated for 50,000 years, carry Denisovan genes that help their immune system, a study suggests. Papua New Guineans who've been genetically isolated for millennia carry unique genes that help them fight off infections. Some of those genes come from our extinct human cousins, the Denisovans. The research also found that Highlanders and Lowlanders evolved different mutations to help them adapt to their wildly different environments. New Guineans are unique as they've been isolated since they settled in New Guinea more than 50,000 years ago. In a new study published in the journal Nature Communications, scientists analyzed the genomes of 54 Highlanders from Mount Wilhelm, who lived between 7,500 and 8,900 feet above sea level, and 74 Lowlanders from Daru Island, who lived less than 330 feet above sea level. They found that mutations Lowlanders probably inherited from Denisovans boosted the number of immune cells in their blood. The Highlanders, meanwhile, evolved mutations that raise their red blood cell count, which helps reduce hypoxia at altitude. Incredibly, that's not unusual, as people from several other high-altitude environments have evolved different mutations to combat hypoxia. So there's nothing to see here. I'm Guy Ticker. The news is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. To submit a story or to get all the latest news, go to nightdreamstalkradio.com, because the truth is out there.
Well, guess what? One of my devices has quit working. That is really weird. Are you there, JC?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. Well, let's figure what's going on. Gee, it went dead. It updated today, too. That's another thing. So, we got a great show lined up here. I don't know what to do. All my my bumper music, everything is tied into this tonight.
Oh, we got some great bumper music, too. Maybe it's too hot for it, Gary.
I don't know what is going on, but, it could be, one of those things. Well, a lady in India was sleeping in her bed. Nothing new about that. A lot of people sleep in beds. That's what they're for. But, back, in the 1800s, they didn't have beds. In the 1700s, you know what they had? Basically little boxes. They kind of like squatted and slept.
Oh, my goodness.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that, but I guess it makes sense. I mean, listen, people sleep anywhere. You got to sleep where you got to sleep. So if you didn't have a bed, you got to find somewhere, right?
Oh, you do. And, a lady in India, again, was sound asleep. And then they went to check up on her, and guess what was there?
I'm afraid to hear this answer because I got a feeling I know what it's going to be, but lay it on me.
Well, a python swallowed her.
Oh my!
And they managed to get her out of a python before she died.
Listen, you would think you would feel this thing, devouring you. If not to mention, it's probably wrapped around you and crushed you. That's a sound sleeper, Gary.
It is. And, if you think things like that, I mean, God, snakes. We've talked about snakes all the time. They found now another copperhead snake that is more venomous than any rattlesnake, any other one. Or it was a cottonmouth, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're in the viper family. They're all nasty. Listen, you got to be careful with them. They like to steal your fish, too, I can tell you that. I've had cottonmouth steal my fish. I've had one swallow my fish whole, speaking of swallowing things, on my stringer. How about that one?
Well, if you get bit by this one, you're dead within about 20 minutes, and there's no anything to stop it.
No, if it's a new species, haven't had time to cultivate to make anti venom for it. So yeah, that makes sense. It's scary.
I'm trying to reboot the computer real quick and see if that solved the problem. Let's see.
Yeah, you got some great bumper music.
No, well, we don't tonight. Well, anyway, yeah, it is really strange what's going on here.
That is strange. I'll tell you, maybe it's got something to do with the heat, because I got to tell you something. It was 98 degrees here with the heat index well into the hundreds. It was just miserable.
You are listening to
guess what?
Night Dreams.
Okay, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
No, it's acting
Are
weird.
you into the paranormal?
Are you? I don't know. Let's one more real quick here.
I think
You are listening to
You know what it did today? My computer's all updated.
Threw it out of whack.
It did something. I have no idea, but at least we know it'll work for later on the show.
Yeah, that you got a ghost in the machine again, Gary. What's going on?
I don't know. Again, when you get a new roof on, you don't realize how much noise it is. I mean, they're tearing your old roof off, the plywood off. In this case, they had to tear a lot of joists, out and put new joists in. And when you got a German Shepherd, a cat, and 2 Great Danes, you know what they do the whole time? Non-stop.
Yeah.
For 9.5 hours.
Oh, that's enough to give you a headache. You got hammering, you got probably nail guns and hammering.
They were non-stop barking.
And then you got non-stop barking from 3 dogs, and probably the cat was probably saying something too, probably scared.
Well, you know what it's like? I have to take them out.
They want to bite.
They want to eat all these roofers.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them went up the ladder really fast.
I mean,
not the dog, the worker.
Yeah. Well, if the dog went up there, he'd be in trouble. Let me tell you. But the decibels must have been high and constant at your house with all the hammering and the dog barking. That would be no wonder you probably don't have a headache today. Jeez.
Oh, I got more than a headache, and it's already 100 degrees in the studio right now.
100 degrees. It's only 9 after the hour. You still.
Oh, well, what can I say? Again, with disclosure, I was listening to another person who's come out and said, I got real disclosure. And you know what? The news media, one of the people, I can't remember the commentator, said today on the newscast, he says, people are getting tired of hearing about UFOs right now. So the media is not really pushing it like they were.
Yeah, and the funny part about it is, anyway, it's the same old stuff. And there's no, they tease with disclosure, but it never comes out. It's never going to come out either. You know this already. It's not going to happen. But yeah, it's oversaturated, or you got what do they call it? A lot of disinformation out there too.
I don't know. If you really want information about UFOs, watch reruns of Resident Alien.
Oh, what was the name of President?
No, Resident Alien.
Resident Alien.
Yeah.
Resident.
Yeah.
Yeah, that show's funny.
Yeah, well, that's what ETs are, aren't they?
Yeah. You're right. I remember the one episode where he was flipping his friends off the aliens. They were supposed to do something.
And they love pizza. course,
Yes.
I was watching a comedy of a UFO alien last night, and it really loved beer. He was your best friend. His name was Bob.
Bob. I thought he was going to say Alf.
No,
Remember?
it was Bob.
Bob, it was
Yeah, as
Bob.
long as you gave him beer one after another, he was happy.
Well, yeah, most anybody would if we give them one after another beer. They would be. Eventually, they're going to be happy by proxy or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who's our first guest tonight, and what are we going to be talking about?
Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Gary. Our first guest tonight is Bill Weber. Now, he is a former member of MUFON of 26 years, and he was the state director of Delaware and Pennsylvania for many of those years. Now, he has taken his UFO research and put some of that into his new book, UFO Crashes and Cover-Ups.
Well, Bill, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing on this Friday?
Well, a little bit cooler than you guys.
Yeah, well, I live in the Pacific Northwest. I'll tell you what, when it gets up above 70, you know what I find, Bill? If you live in the Seattle, Tacoma, or even Oregon or California, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. People are wearing shorts and wearing sunglasses in the middle of winter. Strange people out here.
That's not the way it is here.
Well, I got to ask you a question. What got you into UFOs, and how old were you when you got interested in the subject, Bill?
Oh, I'm hearing myself. Is that good or bad?
Well, hopefully that clears up.
Okay, that's much better. Yeah. I was a young lad, I guess around 10 or 11 years old, and I always noticed this bright object in the sky, and in a relatively, same position. And I always, thought, gee, this is pretty interesting. And I noticed that it was changing color, like white to red to blue and so on. And I kept watching it, and it was there approximately the same area all the time. And I didn't know what it was. And that kind of sort of forced me to go a little bit more digging and such into it. I guess I started getting more interested in it when I was hearing about, I was a little older then, okay, and always interested in science fiction movies, science fact movies, the old TV shows, The Outer Limits and all of that. Also the TV show Project Blue Book and such. So I was trying to read everything I could on the subject, and eventually one day I read something, and it mentioned an organization called MUFON. So I elected to check into it and joined as a journal subscriber, which every month they come out with a new journal that covers all UFO activity sightings throughout the world. So I got really interested in that, and then in reading that, it always stuck in my head that maybe there's a little bit more than just reading about this. I'd like to get involved with some of this. So I explored the possibility of becoming a field investigator, which then I purchased material from MUFON, studied it, and so on and so forth, and was tested and passed the test. So then I was considered, I guess, a junior investigator, and I tagged along with a senior investigator / state section director. And as time went on, I was getting more and more cases, and eventually turned loose by myself to do my own investigations and such, and was doing a good job. And then as time went on, then I guess I was doing such a good job that I was promoted up into a state section director, where I was now responsible for several investigators. And how that worked within MUFON, if I can, is like within the state of Pennsylvania, there are 67 counties. And so each one of those counties are combined together to create a section. Okay, there's quite a few sections within PA. And within each one of those sections, there is a team of investigators that have a support function, which is called a state section director. And above all of that, there is a chief investigator that's responsible for everybody within the state. And then above him then is the assistant state director, and then finally the state director, who's in charge of the whole enchilada. So as time went on, I was promoted up from field investigator to state section director, and then eventually I was promoted up to chief investigator and held that position for quite a bit of time, providing support for all the state section directors and the field investigators that worked under them, involved in training and also going on cases with them. And then as time went on, there was a change in leadership within Pennsylvania, and I was asked to take over as the state director for a brief period of time. Did that for a while, and then I was approached by the international director, and he says, there's no coverage down in Delaware. Would you want to take a look at that? So I said, sure. And I then was given the state of Delaware as the state director, but in doing so, I stepped down from Pennsylvania, and then I made recommendations for the person to fill my shoes, and he's doing a fine job. So now I'm in charge of Delaware, living in Pennsylvania, and Delaware only had 2 people in it, and I was one of them, okay? So over time, I grew that area to, I had about 45 people down there, and I was doing monthly presentations, bringing in speakers, and then also doing movies, UFO related and stuff every month. So I called my program down there the MUFON Continuing Education Series. And every month I had something different going on, and it drew more and more and more people. But it's starting to get a little bit overwhelming. So basically I kind of sort of stepped back and wanted to do my own research. And so I stepped out of MUFON, and what precipitated me doing the research to put this book together. So that's what I've been doing for the last probably 9-10 months. And it's just been recently released, like about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'm pretty pleased about that. But that gives you an understanding. But I've been involved in over several hundred investigations, including everything from crop circles, lights in the sky, a possible abduction. I believe she was abducted. And I have her on tape for that interview. Myself, I've not seen anything that I could say, oh, look, but I've talked to a number of people that have. And I've been involved in investigations where people have seen things where, and these things are included in that book, where we actually have FAA radar to prove that there was stuff up there.
Again, I believe a lot of people, have had encounters seeing UFOs and people being abducted. But there is some people out there, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I don't buy their stories. And the reason why I don't is when I get somebody on, it tells me, I was regressed. And all of a sudden, when I was regressed, I remembered being taken on a board of a craft. And they, experimented on me. They removed my eggs out of my ovary. They did this, they did that.
Right.
And here's the problem. Unless somebody, and I say this so often, is certified in doing regressions, you really regress, because I don't know your age, but I'm going on 73, and I remember all those B movies of the late 50s and 60s of aliens, then Star Trek, Star Wars, and a ton of movies since then. And all that, when people watch it, get implanted in their brain. Have you run across anybody it claims that they were regressed, and you kind of like were not sure of their story?
Well, in dealing with the subject for the time that I have been dealing with it, and in doing my research, one of the things that I've developed, and I like to refer to it as my own little filter, I call it a BS to reality converter, okay? And I use that quite often when I sit and listen to people tell their story. And within the framework of doing case investigations as a field investigator and such, there are certain little phrases and such that trigger a thought pattern that you want to go and ask more specific questions. And those then questions, if it sounds reasonable, then what we do is within MUFON, they have a group that was called the ERT, the Experiencer Researcher Team. And there are psychologists on that team and medical professionals that would then pick up the ball and run with it, because we're not trained in psychology and such to ask all the proper questions. But we can ferret out a lot of, some of the ridiculous stuff, like, oh, I was taken with a green man over here and I saw his children and all of this, But some people, I mean, they are almost paranoid, very frightened, because they feel that they are being followed and it will happen to them again. There have been some books written, and some of those books, I believe myself, the jury's still out on some of those, but that's my take on it. Probably very close to yours, Gary.
Well, again, I've had some, Calvin Parker was on my show years ago, and, Terry Lovelace and a whole bunch of people that claimed they were abducted. And some of the people, I really believe they had some type of encounter that we can't explain what happened to them. But then there's been other ones on, that I go, oh my God, why are they on my show?
Right.
I had one lady one time, seriously, that she came out that it was a new book that was going to be published. And I had the publisher online, and she was talking about her stuff, but then she kept contradicting herself all the way through. And halfway through the interview, the publisher told my producer, I'm pulling the plug. The book is never going to be published. And again, everybody wants to jump on the train and make a buck on it. There's authors out there, and I don't blame them, but there's authors that have 35, 40 books in the subject, and they just every month cranking out a new one. And I think that does more damage to ufology than anything.
I agree. Before I came out with this book on UFOs, and it's UFO sightings, reports, and the cover-ups, I was exploring writing a book about Antarctica. And I really dug into that. I got all the way down to the very beginnings with Shackelford and everything else. But as I'm doing more and more research on it, there are more and more books coming out about Antarctica. And I just says, the heck with this. I just flushed everything that I did, because I don't want to come across as being a me too. And the other thing that I do is, if I'm researching something, if I read about it on one site, I'll look all over the place to see if it's on multiple sites. And if the same story is being told on multiple sites, I kind of sort of give it a little bit more credibility than just seeing it on one site or hearing it from one person. But if everybody's on the same sheet music, then I tend to perhaps believe it, what they're saying, and maybe dig into it a little bit more. But I agree with you. A lot of people, I don't know, some people want to join MUFON just to get at our database and then perhaps want to write a book based on what they're finding in there. But I think that people now that are being closely vetted, so that doesn't happen.
Now, that is a good possibility. Now, also, something about a UFO crash. What can you tell the listeners about that crash?
Well,
where was it and when?
Okay, it's not directly involved with that. This is based on research that I found, that there was a UFO crash, alleged UFO crash in the Black Forest in Germany in 1936. And that craft was then picked up and taken under, I guess Himmler was confiscated a castle over in Wilsberg, Germany. So they took that crash recovered material and brought it to that castle. Now, Himmler and some other individuals in the German Reich were very, very interested in the occult. And to that end, they had some, I guess, communicators or receivers. There were two ladies there that were involved with the Tool Society, and one of them's name was Maria Orsic, and the other lady's name was Sigrun. And Maria Orsic was in some kind of a telepathic communication with the Aryan race at the Aldebaran star system. And through that telepathic communication, she received data that she, in two different languages, and this Sigrun was helped to try to translate it. And essentially what it was plans to create a flying craft. And what happened then was that those plans were then combined with the material that was recovered in Black Forest, and they came out with a version of craft that they called the Hanabu. And as time went on, there were improvements made to that, and they came out with one that they named after the society they formed, which was called VRIL, V-R-I-L, craft. And it was during the war that the Allied pilots were seeing these things flying around them, and they weren't certain what they were. They called them Foo Fighters. And they could have very well been these Hanabu craft that were created there. And that's what I got out of that crash.
But, did they have the technology at that time to do it? Because, they were advancing in rockets, and, they had the first jets. And towards the end of the war, but would they have the technology to have these type of craft that could maneuver and do stuff and supposedly even leave the Earth's atmosphere?
Well, just think about, I'm going to fast forward, but just think about the crash at Roswell. And look at all the material that was recovered there that now we're using in modern society, okay? If you just think about it, all that material, fiber optics, okay, the transistors, integrated circuits, the laser, stealth technology, what else can Kevlar, okay? All of that came from that crash recovery.
Well, that is so true. Now, Bill, we need to take a break. It's about 3 minutes long. When we come back, they just found so many claims they found in the crash site here just recently, a piece of material from the UFO. So we'll talk about that too for a second. When you come back, you're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio. Check out our website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. At the top of the hour, think about Little House on the Prairie, the TV show. One of the more famous TV shows that is going to live for another 100 years on TV if we are around. What is really interesting about it is we got Dean Butler, and we're going to be talking about his new book, Life After the Prairie. So stay tuned. We'll be back with Bill right after this.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Time traveler shares photo from the year 5000. And it's not good news. The man, known only as Edward, claims to have evidence that humans are no longer land-based after he says he time traveled while working at a lab in Los Angeles. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Coming to you live from the Night Dreams Talk Radio studios and broadcasting this worldwide.
When we were little kids in the fourth grade, 1970, 4 or 5 of the kids in my class were held back, and it was revealed to us by the government that there were 70 ET species known to be visiting us.
It's Gary Anderson, the man who delivers the dish.
The 4 species they were aware of were the tall grays, the small grays, the amphibians, and the Nordic.
Now, sit back and get ready for a ride you won't forget. I mean, how could you?
They're interdimensionals in time ships and not extraterrestrials in spaceships.
And we're just getting started. And now, here he is, the real deal himself, Gary Anderson.
And we are back with Bill. You know, they just found, it was in the news in the last couple of days, somebody claims they found a piece of the UFO, and it was analyzed, and it was pure aluminum. And now they're saying, well, if it's pure aluminum, we really doubt if it was off the craft. What would your take on something like that be?
Well, there was a situation where a craft crashed into a water tower in Aurora, Texas in 1897, and it exploded, and it threw material all over the place, and we're finding aluminum type material embedded in ground and such. And they also found a pilot that then was buried. Sometime later, there were MUFON investigators that had gone out to the site, and they were using, I guess, ground penetrating radar and such to find fragments of material, and the material that they found didn't indicate that there were like stress cracks in it. It was like it was molded, which meant that it was heated up and melted. Okay, so there was tremendous heat involved with this material that was almost like aluminum. When they wanted to go and dig up where this, whatever it was buried, the town wouldn't let them do it because they didn't just want that kind of publicity. So somewhere along the line, they stole the headstone, and nobody knows where it is now, but there's something buried there. But one of the things that Jim mentioned earlier was talk about crashes and such. There was a situation that I personally investigated with a state section director about almost a mid-air collision over Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. There was a number of craft that were representing a target, roughly, or skin targets, plural, representing some length of about 600 feet by about 150 feet wide, that came within close proximity of an aircraft. It was close to almost, the closest it got was 1 mile, where you can see with the radar tracking that was being tracked every 2 minutes, that as they were getting closer and closer, this aircraft that had a transponder on it, and that transponder was sending out a code 4207. You could see where he took evasive action, I guess, and he told the tower to get me down. And he did go down. And then that target that was there, for whatever reason, it either went radar dark or it just stood still in the air while this aircraft did its evasive movements. And then it proceeded moving south toward Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. And then Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, their radars, after several weeks of us filing Freedom of Information Act to the base, they said, oh, well, we didn't have our radars turned on. So there's denial right there.
Yeah.
Okay. We actually did get radar from FAA. They could have messed up, but we can actually see this whole tracking pattern of this object that was, or objects that were over Bethlehem, Douglasville, Pennsylvania, and I show that in a chapter in the book. The other thing is, when we received that information back from the FAA, we didn't know what we were looking at. It looked like somebody dumped a can of pepper on a white paper. So we sent it to a MUFON radar analyst, Glenn Schultz, who's out in Colorado. And he, the one who analyzed this. Then we had another case happen soon after, where again we had radar on it, and it was to a point where the aircraft was actually flying through the pattern, if you would, of where these unknowns were. And this radar analyst, he was very upset because he says there's so much activity going on in this northeast corridor that he's afraid there will be a mid-air collision. And I've got that in there too. That's documented.
When Congress did their circus, which I called a circus, Roswell never happened. Nothing ever happened when the government officials, from the Pentagon down to the CIA, and it come out and and testified, well, Roswell never happened. All this never happened. And it's a whitewash. And then so many people thought, gee, we're going to get major disclosure. And honestly, unless I read it and watched it wrong, we're talking about it, but we've been talking about it since 1947. And we still haven't got anything from the government to admit anything, really, other than the Tic Tac, which, we really don't know what it is.
George Filer, does that name ring a bell?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He's my co-author in this book. And he had written 2 chapters in here, one of which is about the incident that occurred at Fort Dix / McGuire Air Force Base. Okay, and he was the deputy director of intelligence there for the 21st Air Force. Okay, and he was present when all of this stuff was going on. And I'm not going to get into the detail, but there was an alien that was shot and killed at Fort Dix that then ran from Fort Dix and died at McGuire Air Force Base. State police were called in, Jersey State Police were called in because of the shots were fired type thing. One of the, soldiers at Fort Dix emptied a clip into him, and this thing then passed away at McGuire. Now, George was present when all of this was going on, and he speaks about this in this chapter in this book. Okay.
Well, that's his word again, which I do believe that probably happened. But that's the whole problem. When you got government agencies, it won't admit to it. And that's what, if you want disclosure, we need it to come from the Pentagon or the White House or, something which will tell the people, yes, there are flying objects. We don't know where they're coming from. We don't know if they're a threat or not. And at least be clean and honest about it.
Oh, right. Well, the thing is, look at those 3 men that just came forward to Congress. All 3 of them were saying this stuff is real, right? And Congress is saying, well, we don't have any proof of this, so we don't believe you.
Well, again, too, what they did, they were really nice. Congress, they sealed it for 25 years. And it's up to the president at that time in 25 years to open it up.
Right. Well,
again, let's be honest with you. If the government's going to lie about what's going on, they're not going to come clean, because then, like I always say every night on the show, then they have to come clean on everything. And they're not going to do that.
Well, that's true. But, there are little things that are leaking out there. Well, again, if you go by the title of the book, and I'm not plugging it, but it says cover-ups, okay? And that's what I was digging into, to try to figure out the cover-ups and why. And there's so much going on with the cover-ups. All I wanted the readers for this book is to understand that this stuff is going on, it's real, and we're not alone out there, okay? If you on any day, a clear day, Gary, if you ever have one out, you probably have one better than we have here in Philly, where you can go outside and look at the sky, okay, on a clear day. You're seeing thousands of stars. And in looking at those thousands of stars, you think, wow, this is something else. But you're only looking at a little tiny sample of our galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, one of the spirals. Okay. With that being said, if you were to vector out from where you are on Earth and go out into space and look at our sun, it's a star, but it's a yellow star. Okay. It's not a blue-white. It's not a blue star. And the thing that's unique about our star is it's got a bunch of rocks floating around it, and we happen to be on one of them. So my thought there is, by looking at all of those stars up in the sky, you mean to tell me you think that we're the only intelligent life out there?
And you know what, Bill? There's a lot of people are so naive or not open-minded. You know, it's not just our galaxy, our solar system. You know, I don't believe that it just comes up to a brick wall. And there's life all out there. And again, we're not even a level 1 civilization. If we ever make it to level 1, we're doing good. But just think about the technology. You know, why are they coming to check out our planet? Is it because we're developing nuclear stuff? Is it because we're interesting? Or is it they want to experiment? But what I don't find it makes logical sense to me, Bill, is all these abductions going on year after year after year. Unless we're getting visited by hundreds and hundreds of different groups of ETs out there. Well, I mean, how many times do they have to abduct somebody to get their DNA and see how a human body functions?
Well, the thing is, and take a look at the cattle mutilations where there's no blood, okay? I think that what's happening is there's multiple races here. You said 4. I believe there's 6.
Oh, I didn't say 4. There's literally probably hundreds of them out there. Just beaming,
that
if not more.
Identified. At least that I know of via regression hypnosis sessions, okay, where people said, you know, you have the small, medium, and large grays, okay? Then you have the tall Nordic and the normal-sized Nordic. Then you have the reptilians, and then you've got the insectoids, okay? Those are the ones that we hear about the majority of the time. And the majority of the time you hear about the grays. And then every now and again, just for fun and games, you throw in the black-eyed children too, you know. But I think that we're playing around with stuff that will affect not only us here on Earth, but will affect other planets, other systems in space, and that's called nuclear. And I think that they're very concerned about it because they're always buzzing around nuclear facilities and also nuclear power plants.
Well, you know, it's not even that. They are interested in war because I used to have a friend, and I was a pretty good friend of this guy. He was the vice president of Republic Airlines, which was really...
Oh, I remember them.
Yeah, they were a big airline at one time.
Yes.
And, you know, in Vietnam, when he was serving, he was a colonel. He used to fly a B-52 from Guam over to North Vietnam and what he would say drop his eggs. And on a return flight after he dropped his eggs, they noticed off of the passenger, or not passenger, but the, you know, off the wing, a UFO right there, like a couple hundred feet, just right there following him. And he did the worst thing because he wanted to make brigadier general and then retire. And the worst thing he said he ever did was he got on the horn and said, I have this UFO. It's right off my wing.
And that's the end of his career.
Well, what he was told is, okay, when you land, nobody departs out of the craft. When he did land, they surrounded the craft with MPs, with, you know, M16s. They were all escorted in separate rooms, and they waited for hours, and then they were interviewed with guys in suits. And he was told his career was over.
Sure.
And that is because, you know, he made the fatal mistake of reporting it. I think we got a caller. Caller, who do we have?
Hello? Hello?
Hi, this is Night Dreams Talk Radio.
How are you? This is Kathleen Siegel. I wanted to call into Dean Butler.
Well, Dean Butler isn't on for an hour before we take calls. We have another guest.
Oh, I see. Okay. I didn't know how soon you had to call in because I've been on talk radio shows in Chicago, and so I know, there's a system that you work through it.
Okay.
And that they can be anywhere. You can have one at home at someone's home, or you can have it in the studio, or you can have them anywhere. You can take them. They're mobile. The only thing I don't have is I don't have the YouTube chat set up because my vision's not that great and I have to have my daughter set up. So I wanted to just ask him some questions on Little House and about his book.
Okay, well, call back in about an hour because we'll take calls at the quarter till the hour.
How soon do you recommend with your show?
We're really...
Jack, I was on the Jack James show. And it was for real estate in Chicago. But there's like a certain amount of time to make sure you can try and get in there.
Well, we take the calls a quarter till to the top of the hour. So just try calling in at a quarter till. And if you don't get through, just wait a minute or two and try again.
Quarter to...
an hour, exactly an hour from now. How's that?
Okay. I'll let you go. I know you're busy.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay, you take care.
Bye-bye.
Uh-huh.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's talk radio. You know that, Bill. But, what he did is when he worked his way up to vice president of Republic Airlines, he told pilots, no matter what you see, do not report it. Don't discuss it with any other employees. If you do, especially back at that time, you lost your license to fly. And I think we got another caller. Who do we have here?
This is Tom.
Hi, Tom. How are you doing? Did you buy that sports car?
Not yet.
Okay. You got a question for Bill?
Yeah, I just wanted your guest's opinion on what he thought of the congressional hearings. I just wanted to know, as someone who was a former member of MUFON, what he felt about the dialogue that occurred, the people that were testifying, etc., and whether or not he feels that there will be any real disclosure forthcoming.
In listening to the dialogue, your name is Tom?
Yes, sir.
Okay, in listening to the dialogue, I gave those individuals a lot of credibility, okay? Because they had nothing to win over. In fact, like Gary was saying, some of them might have compromised their own careers by coming forward, but they came forward. And again, the last chapter in my book speaks about a little bit about what the government thought of all of that, okay? But the government is still denying it. I would like to believe that something is going to happen. It has to happen within the next 10 years, only because in the past, you get 2 or 3 or 4 people come and say, hey, I saw something out there, or I've experienced this, or whatever. Okay, and they would just laugh at you and discredit you and ruin your life. But when you have thousands of people coming forward and saying, okay, enough's enough. We want to know what's going on here. What's the truth? What's going to happen in now and what's happening later? And I think it's going to be a scenario where the government's going to have to be coming out and admit something, okay? Because the whole country isn't crazy, okay? We're seeing things. More people are seeing things. More people are photographing things because they have cell phones now with cameras on them. Things are being seen. Now, what you have to understand is some of the things that are being seen are our own stuff, okay? And for a long time, there was an aircraft out there called the TR-3A, the TR-3B, which flew under the Aurora program, and that particular aircraft was shaped like a triangle. And a lot of what people are seeing today are triangles. And also some of the drones that are being manufactured today too are very strange looking, but they're US made. Okay. I hope I answered your question. I don't want to drag you out there thinking it's never going to happen, but I think part of it is they're holding things tight to the vest only because they don't want to release things that could be considered or construed to be secret.
No, I think you. I appreciate you answering that. Thank you very much.
I will say this, Tom, too, is that the new bomber that they have developed is, if anything, it looks outer space. It looks more like a bat than any of them, and that will, be confusing people too. I'm sure that when they've been doing these test flights on it, there's another UFO.
I remember when the TR program started. The code name for that was Dark Star, and those triangles, as your guest said, have been around for a couple of decades, and I think that we may not have been able to totally back engineer one, but a lot of that information that we did glean from it was used to produce hybrid craft.
I think so. Well, Tom, you have a great weekend, will you?
You do the same. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for calling in. Well, too, I just wanted to say, Bill, my late friend Art Bell had some technology that was turned over to him, a hunk of metal that supposedly came from Roswell that he sent out to labs, and it was aluminum based, but the way it was compounded, it was no way that it could have been formed on Earth. And I think Linda Morton Howell bought part of it, or bought it, or whatever. But, I saw it when I was over at his place, his compound, and he was showing it to me. And it makes you wonder what else is out there. This is the if you want proof, there's some proof right there.
Well, some of the material that was recovered from Roswell, where they said they had this metal and then they could fold it up and then it restored back to its original shape. Memory metal. Yeah. We have that today. Okay, those metal samples and stuff were sent out to Battelle out in Ohio. And they come out and developed this material. It's called nitinol. And that is pretty interesting metal in and of itself.
And it self-heals too.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. It's interesting too. My father was an electronic engineer. He was developing, some of the electronics that they were when Boeing was going to build the SST.
Yes.
Okay. He was designing some of the electronics to be used on that craft. And, I've been in electronics since I was a kid. I was a licensed amateur at 12 years old. I was in CV at 10. And, I always, have been infatuated with electronics. And when I was a younger kid, around 16 or 17, I asked my dad one time, I said, how did we go from vacuum tubes to the transistor so fast? And my dad looked at me and goes, when you think about it, from the early 1900s all the way up to the mid 50s, and then the later 50s, then the transistors started arriving like in the late 50s, early 60s. And what he said is no way we could have gone that technology that fast. The same way he always was fascinated with fiber optics. All of a sudden, it wasn't in existence, and all of a sudden, there it was.
That's right. Well, transistor came out in 46, 47, okay? Because they found these, at Roswell, they found this, they gave it all over to Phil Corso, okay? And what Phil Corso did is, with all of the artifacts that were recovered, rather than keeping them in file cabinets at the government, he gave them to private industry, where they were immune from FOIA requests. So and the companies that received a lot of these artifacts were under contract with the government anyway, okay? AT&T Bell Labs was one, okay? Battelle was another one, all right, that received material. Now they found these little wafers that had these little things on them. They didn't know what they were, so they gave those out, and they were investigated. And the first integrated circuits came from Texas Instruments.
Oh yeah,
1958.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
then,
but I will tell you, the first integrated circuits were huge, and they only had like one function at that point. Then it got to the point where they were doing multiple functions. Then it got down to the size that where you need a magnifying glass. That's how fast it advanced. And I'll tell you, back in the 60s and 70s, it was really moving fast. Hey, what's the name of your book? Where can they find it?
I'll show you.
Yeah, show it here to the audience.
The name of my book is UFOs, Sightings, Reports, and Cover-Ups. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah, we can see it fine.
And this book is available on Amazon. It's available in Kindle, hardcover, and softcover. It's also available right now on Barnes & Noble. Okay, this book was only published like 2 weeks ago. So, but we're making good headway. Yeah, it talks about everything that we've talked about, and it talks about some of the advances. Like, just as an example, you remember using adding machines, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, and then they said, well, that's really slow and stuff, and then they came out with this mechanical device called I remember it well. It was called a Friedenflexorider. You remember that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And again, that's a calculator. So then they figure, well, let's speed things up and hook them up with vacuum tubes, all right? And thermionic emission was a good way to go, but it generated a lot of heat and a lot of weight. So the first first computer that came out was the Sperry Univac, and that thing I couldn't fit it in half of my house. It was so big. And they used vacuum tubes and relays, all right? Now with the advent of the transistor and the advent of the integrated circuit, imagine if you were a computer. I guess you played around with electronics somewhere.
I'll be honest with you, I designed the first IBM XD clone.
Oh, did you?
And
okay.
I also worked on designing computers with Dr. Wang. You remember Dr. Wang?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
out of Massachusetts.
Yeah, I know a lot about electronics. Hey, our time is up. Again, give the name of the book and again where they can find it, Bill.
Okay. The name of the book is UFOs, Sightings, Reports, and Cover-Ups. It covers everything dating back to 500 BC all the way up to and including today, advances in the technologies, sighting reports, the cover-ups for those sighting reports, and the denials for those sighting reports. It is available on Amazon.com in 3 flavors: Kindle version, paperback, and hardcover. And it's also available on Barnes & Noble, same flavors, electronic, paper, and hardcover. And I hope you enjoy it. I spent almost 9 months writing this book.
Well, that tells me you're really serious in it, because I've had people say, well, I wrote my book in 2 weeks. And I can tell you, some of the people who write books in 2 weeks, that's exactly what you're going to get. And you did a lot of research. In fact, that's how I found you, is about your book. But that's another story. Hey, Bill, you have a great weekend, and stay out of trouble, will you?
Thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on your show. And my words of wisdom for all your listeners out there, which I believe in, is always seek the truth.
Okay, my friend, you take care.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Well, okay, we're going to be back after this break, which is about 5 minutes long, with, we're going to be talking about Little House on the Prairie. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
you in my heart, like the first days, like the lava. I try to keep you in my heart, like the first days, like the moment. This is all I've got.
Come along on a unique journey of adventure and discovery. Read On the Trail of Bigfoot, a first-hand account from paranormal researcher and skilled outdoorsman Mike Dupler on his many years of investigations into the Bigfoot phenomena and his personal encounters with these enigmatic creatures of the forest, complete with photographs. Don't delay. Order your copy today. This book will inspire those who have answered the call to seek this elusive creature, the Bigfoot. The truth is out there. On the Trail of Bigfoot by Mike Dupler. Available now at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and IndieBound.org.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening, but they fought with expert timing. There were funky Chinamen from funky Chinatown. They were chopping them up, they were chopping them down. It's an ancient Chinese art.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Broadcasting to you live in his underwear. Sorry. From the studios of Night Dreams Talk Radio, you're listening to Gary Anderson. He's the bomb.
The size of nuclear bombs today has evolved from the 1960s so that they are smaller but more accurate.
Hey, are we talking about weapons or Gary?
Even if the total megatonnage was actually less, the explosive force would be spread out more efficiently across the metropolitan area. So in that case, the actual destruction would be even greater than what I'm about to describe now.
Yeah, we're talking about Gary. On the radio, on the internet, and in worldwide syndication. Get ready for the ride of your life.
The destruction that I'm about to describe is likely an underestimation of what would actually happen. It still gives an adequate sort of approximation of the effects. So here we go.
Here's Gary.
And here I am. You know what? I feel like an ET tonight. JC is going to come and get me out of my bed.
They will. And listen, if it's in the shape of a boa constrictor, run.
Yeah. Can you believe, though, the lady was swallowed by a snake?
No, listen, she is a sound sleeper because anything even slimy like that gets in my bed with me, I'm up on you got to peel me off the ceiling.
You know, she should go and travel into the United States and go to that restaurant in Florida.
Oh, boy, the tug of war. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, where the guy was sitting in the library and a snake come up and attached himself.
Yeah, and then the whole scene of something like Mary that brought everybody in that, had to view. That's once in a lifetime. Everybody to come in and look.
Yeah. I wonder how his love life was after that one.
Probably on the downslide, I bet.
You know, one of my favorite shows was MASH, followed by Little House on the Prairie. And all my kids growing up, we'd sit down and we'd watch Little House on the Prairie.
Oh yeah, we did too. I was a young man. We watched that and the Waltons and that and MASH.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, Little House on the Prairie was actually even better than the Waltons. It really was because it had more of a story behind it. We had all these people, all these characters Not just one group of characters, but multiple characters. And that's what made the show so unique.
Yeah, I love this show. I watched it all the time. And listen, Michael Landon and
I had a crush on Nellie.
We had her on the show.
Yeah, we sure did.
Yeah, that listen, there was something about that brat face, but she stuck her tongue out. It was terrific.
I know. And I never want to eat one of her pies. Okay, let's get a little information about our guests here tonight.
Dean Butler was born on May 20th, 1956, in Prince George, BC, Canada. He's a producer and actor, best known to audiences for his portrayal of Almanzo Wilder from 1979 to 1983 on the iconic pioneer drama Little House on the Prairie. He co-starred in the feature film Desert Hearts, played Moondoggy in the syndicated The New Gidget, and Buffy's dad, Hank Summers, on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. On Broadway, Dean played Rapunzel's prince in the original company of Into the Woods, toured internationally as Tony in West Side Story, and appeared with Carol Burnett in a regional production of Company. From 2011 to 2020, Dean was the senior producer of NBC Golf's Emmy-nominated entertainment sports series, Faraday. In 2024, Dean will be serving as the producer of the Little House on the Prairie 50th Anniversary Cast Reunion and Festival in Simi Valley, and will release his first book, a memoir, and a look back at 50 years of Little House entitled Prairie Man, My Little House Life and Beyond. Dean lives in Los Angeles, and this year will celebrate his 23rd wedding anniversary to actress Catherine Cannon.
Well, Dean, welcome back to the show. Have you been staying out of trouble?
I've been doing my best, Gary. Absolutely.
How do you take Geritol or something like that? How do you get all this energy to do what you do? I mean, you're going to all these get-togethers about Little House on the Prairie, all over the nation. And then you had that major event where it all took place. How do you get the energy?
Well, I go to bed early, I can tell you that. Generally, I think we are sort of heading for sleepy land around 9:30 Pacific time, but then I'm up thinking about things in the middle of the night, and I'm probably out of bed every day by 6:30. So it all balances out. This has all been fun for me, and it's an important part of my life, and so it gets a lot of attention.
Well, too, I bet you didn't realize how many fans are still into A Little House on the Prairie. All these shows that, I won't mention the name of them, but they've been rebooted. I mean, I would have loved to seen Little House or something rebooted. They say that it's changed because we go through different cycles in media, but we need to go back to something it's entertaining and wholesome, not all this blood. I mean, I some of the shows I watch, there's more blood, I should say, than anything else. It's gotten way out of hand.
But Gary, isn't that sort of your world? I mean, you're sort of into that paranormal, although maybe paranormal doesn't mean blood.
I don't like blood.
Okay. All right. But okay. But you're, it's sort of sci-fi-ish, what you're into and all of that. And so that actually surprises me a little bit that blood is a problem for you, Gary. I'm just surprised. But look, I'm not looking around for blood either. So but it surprises me that would make you a little squeamish, because you just seem like, you can roll with anything.
Well, not with blood. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
No. Or my wife's cooking, one of the two.
Well, wait a minute. Now, I love my wife's cooking. I mean, Catherine is just an incredible cook. Our deal always, she makes all these incredible things, and I do the cleanup. Now, tonight, Gary, I'm not cleaning up because I'm talking to you. But normally, after dinner, I am right in the kitchen with my hands in the sink and the soap and the dishes, and I'm getting that done, because that's the deal. I eat wonderful food and I clean up.
Well, I do the dishes too, and I clean her bird cages occasionally for her too. But I'll tell you a real quick secret. When we first got married, again, I met her over a maple bar, and that's a long story. But we got married.
Maple bars.
And, you know, she decided after we went on our honeymoon, we came back, she was going to cook me a dinner. Now, I didn't know she didn't know how to cook. She took a roast. And at that time, we had a gas oven. So the roast was frozen. So she put that frozen roast in the oven for about 10 hours to thaw it out.
Oh, my God.
And then she cooked it. And then I come home from work. She had a bottle of champagne. I had a couple glasses, which, you know, I got drunk on the first glass. And then she gave me this great tasting roast. And 4 hours later, I was in the hospital and I almost died from acute food poisoning.
Oh, my God. Wow. That's quite an introduction, Gary. And how long have you been married?
40, going on 48 years.
Yeah. So obviously, that was not, the cooking was not a deal breaker.
No, but I sure ate a lot of TV dinners in those 48 years. But
wow.
Little House on the Prairie, were you shocked with the amount of fans that, you know, still are into it?
I mean, I think yes and no, because I think it's always, you know, when you're just living your life, you're not necessarily around that all the time. But when we step as a cast into this world again with people, I mean, you know, you referenced in your opener about this event in Simi Valley, which we had in March.
Right.
We had 18,000 people from 27 countries come to Simi Valley. And, you know, a lot of those people traveled. It wasn't just a Southern California crowd domestically. There were people that came from all over the United States, Europe, South America, Asia, to Australia to visit with us. It was just an incredible thing. It's really something, Gary, when you realize that the program is still running in 140 countries around the world every single day. And is constantly being introduced to younger generations of viewers. So it's a very much an ongoing thing. Obviously, it's been off the network for 40 years, but it is very alive in the spirits of people and in the viewing experiences of people who watch it and absolutely love it. It's very special to be a part of that.
You know, I'm surprised some bigwigs in Hollywood, you know, producers didn't take notice of that and figured, well, hey, maybe we need to step back and stop producing what we're producing and maybe go back to a time where TV was entertainment. And now, you know, it's not just cable, it's cable networks, all this stuff. And, you know, the thing is, we lost that. Like I said earlier, we lost that. I wouldn't want to sit with my grandkids and watch anything on TV currently right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that is one of the great things about Little House is that families of all ages, all members of the family, on a multi-generational basis, can sit down in front of the television and watch Little House and enjoy a story that works on a whole range of different levels. It works for kids. It works for adults. Kids get to model kids' behavior. Parents get to model parental behavior. It is a very special phenomenon. And what Michael really wanted was people to be able to sit and talk about it afterwards. He wanted people to have conversations and share with each other what they experienced and enhance this back and forth communication. You know, so it's so common today, Gary, you can have multiple members of a family in the same room and they're all watching something different on their phone, on their iPad, on their computer. We do lose that water cooler shared experience in this world that we're in now. It's inevitable. It's where we are. You know, we are all the programmers now. We get to choose as much as we want to watch of any one thing, but we don't have the common shared experience anymore. And there was something valuable about that.
Well, you know, what it did is made the viewers feel like they were part of the show. And that's what, you know, I was watching it, I'll be honest with you, during the day in my studio, I got this huge big screen behind me. You know what I'm watching? Little House on the Prairie. And when I get tired of that, I watch Alfred Hitchcock. It's a good combination, isn't it?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, two great storytellers. Alfred Hitchcock and Michael Landon were two great storytellers. And interestingly, they had some things in common. I think Michael had a real fascination for horror and things that scared you. I mean, Michael was born on Halloween. He had he loved doing Halloween episodes. His first major opportunity in Hollywood was I Was a Teenage Werewolf.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he had a lot of that. He had this very sort of quirky, spooky sense of humor. And he really got a kick out of all that. I think, good mix with a good blending with Michael and Alfred Hitchcock, actually, in a very different kind of storytelling, but two great storytellers.
Well, if you think about it, the shows after, like Highway to Heaven, maybe that was kind of influenced from Alfred Hitchcock type of thing, because again, it was like he was, an angel from God and all that. That was a rather interesting show. And, the thing is, he made you feel, again, like it was real. And that's what was really good about it. He really put his heart and soul in. How was he as the director and in charge of the whole thing? What was he like to work with?
Well, he was a great director and he was a great producer. No one understood what Michael was trying to do better than Michael did, and that may seem like an obvious thing, but that's not always the case. Michael, as a creative force, as a creative presence, really got the show that he was trying to do. Michael grew up in a relatively unhappy home, and I think he devoted himself to creating happy homes for millions and millions of people. And I think this was an aspiration he had. I think he knew it was a void for a lot of people that they didn't have, and he put his heart and soul into that. He was a remarkable leader on the set. I never saw a moment of uncertainty in his eyes. I never saw a moment's doubt on him. It's like everything happened the way things happened. They happened the way he wanted them to happen. And if he had to change the plan because of weather or a set didn't work or something, plan B was inevitably better than plan A. He was a chess player on the set, and he was always moves ahead of what he was doing. Crews loved him. Actors could count on him. He was a spectacular creative force.
How did the whole show, how did it come about? What's the story behind it?
So it's an interesting story. So the show was, the creator of the program, or the original executive producer, was a man named Ed Friendly. Ed Friendly was a known commodity at NBC. He was one of the executive producers of Laugh-In. He'd been one of the producers of NBC specials, whether it be parades, concert shows, all those kinds of things. That was Ed's bailiwick, and he teamed up with George Schlatter to create Laugh-In. So in 1972 or so, 72, 73, he came in to say goodbye to his daughter, Brooke, and to kiss her goodbye. She was homesick from school, and she was in bed, and in her hands was a copy of Little House on the Prairie. And she's reading this book, and Ed stops, and he says, why are you reading that book? That's a kid's book. And she said, "Oh, Daddy, I love this book. This is my favorite book. I read this book every year." And he was really surprised by that. He left her, he kissed her goodbye, went out, he spoke to Natalie, his wife, and said, "Brooke is reading this kid's book." "Well," she says, "Ed, I've been telling you for years," and when your wife is telling you for years, you better be paying attention. I love these books. I read them as a girl. I've told you for years. This is the way it went. I've told you for years this would make a wonderful television series. The next day, Ed borrows that copy of Little House on the Prairie. He's going on a trip to New York. He hides the book in a Time magazine on the airplane because he doesn't want anybody in first class to see that he's reading this kid's book. So by the time he arrives in New York, he's on the phone to his attorney saying, find out who owns these books. This is a fantastic story. I want to make a television series out of this. They found Roger Lee McBride. Roger Lee McBride was the step, or the, I guess he was considered sort of the unofficial grandson of Rose Wilder Lane, who was Laura Ingalls Wilder's daughter, and he was her attorney, and she thought of him as a grandson. She had no heir. Roger Lee McBride inherited all of Rose's work, which is extensive, as well as her mother's work when Rose passed away. When Ed found Roger Lee McBride, interesting, Roger Lee McBride was a president, a candidate for president with the Libertarian Party, and I think it was in the early 1970s.
Yeah, I remember.
So he's an interesting character. Anyway, they met, they chatted. Ed made a deal. They acquired the books. Ed set out to have a pilot made, or written. When it was done, the networks really all passed. They were moving away from Westerns. They were away from shoot 'em up violence and horses and wagons, and all of that was going away. But Ed believed in it, and he thought about an episode of Bonanza that he and his wife Natalie had loved, called The Wish. And he sent the script with Brooke, who now was driving, up the street in Beverly Hills to Tower Road, and Brooke dropped a copy of the script in Michael's mailbox on a Sunday morning. That afternoon, Ed's phone rings. It's Michael on the phone. He's read the script. He wants to talk about it. He's down in Ed's kitchen, and they're talking. Michael not only wants to direct this, which is what Ed's initial thought was, not to have Michael act in it, but to have Michael direct it. Michael announced to Ed during that meeting that not only did he want to direct it, but he wanted to star in it too. Well, here's where it really gets good. Michael had a pay-or-play deal at NBC at that time following the cancellation of Bonanza. Bonanza literally had just been canceled. So he had some leverage at NBC. Both NBC and Michael had exercised 2 strikes of their mutual 3-strike deal about what Michael would do next. Michael wanted to do Little House. NBC, if they said no, would have owed Michael a boatload of money and gotten nothing for it. As it turned out, I think they made the decision, what have we got to lose? Michael's one of our NBC's biggest stars. This is a genre that the audience loves him in. At the worst, if this turns out to be just a wonderful movie the week that we can rerun, we've got inventory, and it's maybe less that we would have owed Michael in the pay or play or deal. So they made the show, and it tested through the roof. It aired in March of 1974, and NBC bought 22 episodes the next week, and they were off and running. And once it started on September 11th, 1974, once it started, there was no looking back. And it ran for 9 full seasons and an abbreviated 10th season where there were 3 movies of the week. And, 40 years later after that, the program is still running in streaming, on basic cable. It's obviously DVDs, Blu-rays are out there. The show continues to find audiences, and it's much loved. It's just been an amazing success story.
Has there been any talk in Hollywood of making a movie out of it or anything like that?
Well, I think there's been lots of conversations about that, but it's never gone beyond that talking phase. I think it's going to be a very tough nut to crack, to feel like you could do something that was going to be different enough that would be somehow different and as beloved as the original. The fact that the original still is going strong all over the world, I think makes that a tougher sell. I think if Little House went away for 10 years, if it just went into mothballs for a decade and then you come back with something new, then maybe you're going to have some receptivity to it. But I just think it's really tough to put something together that's directly competing. And particularly in this environment where you don't even have the platform of a powerful primetime launch anymore. I mean, primetime is still the biggest audience getter that there is, but there are so many things competing with it to get synergy around a brand new idea when you've got the old one, the original, still present in people's minds. That's a tough deal. I think that has been the struggle for years. Apparently, Gary, there is a deal in the works now. I can't give you details, but apparently there is a deal somewhere in the works now. But we've heard this before. It never quite gets there. And I hope it does, because it would be good for the property if it did.
It'd be great just to be able to watch something wholesome.
Yeah.
You know what? We need to take a break, but before we take this break, I think we have a caller. Who do we have out there?
Kathleen Spiegel.
Yeah, Kathleen.
Dean is familiar with me. And guess what we're watching?
Well, you're watching Little House on the Prairie now.
Yes. I just wanted to put that on for a little tone there. I'd like to ask you, you're talking about how making another show. I really believe if it wasn't for Little House, and I mean the whole cast pulled together the way they did a lot of life lessons for young kids and that. Now, I raised my kids up on it. And I've been helping raising my grandkids. Now we're talking ages from 23 down to 10, and they watch it. And this is today. Great? Okay. So I'm thinking, because after my husband, when he was alive, we would sit and discuss the show with the kids and say, what life lesson do you think was in that show? And we would discuss it with them. And so I really think having a new show, yes, there's going to be some things that may not quite, but you've got such a following with your with Little House. Little House, it's a legacy. Yeah. You can definitely do that. Another thing I had that I wanted to put in there, I'm losing my vision, and I ordered one of your books. And I was wondering, are you going to get large print?
That's up to the publisher as to whether they do large print. I will tell you, it will be available as a Kindle, which means that you can set the size of the print, and it will also be available as an audiobook, so you could listen to it if you chose to do that.
Can I jump in for a minute, Dean? You can also go on Amazon and you can buy a magnifier book size that you can put over it, and it'll like double the size or triple the size of the text.
Yeah, I'm working with that right now, and I think things are going to happen it's slowly, gradually losing completely. But do you think you'll have them on cassette, maybe?
On cassette?
Audio book.
Like audio cassette?
Oh, audio?
I think the audio book will be a digital file. I don't think it's going to be. Wow. Someone might be able to copy it to a cassette for you, but the read is about 10 hours long. So that will be a lot of cassette tapes. Cassettes, I haven't seen a cassette with anything on it in years.
But Dean, you know what? CDs are on the way out.
Are you going to narrate it yourself?
I have read it myself. It's all I did the read about a month ago.
I said narrate it. If you do it on cassette, would you narrate it yourself?
Well, I did do the audiobook. I did read the audiobook.
So maybe I'll give that to Bridget then, and I'll get the audio.
Yeah, I think that would be a great way to listen to it.
Now, when you pre-order like that, if you pre-order, can you? I got mine on Book Soup. I don't know if you're familiar with them. But,
I do know Book Soup. I've been and signed hundreds of books at Book Soup.
Okay, and they are autographed. Okay, that's cool.
That's right.
And another thing, the last thing I saw you on was with Mother Love, and you had talked about a little bit about your childhood and that. Do you think that maybe some of your own personal feelings get involved when doing the show?
Of course. Well, certainly your life experience gets involved.
I mean, some of your own personal experiences from your life as a kid.
Yeah. Well, I think actors totally work from their own lives and their own experience. I mean, that's how we learn to step into the world, is through the lessons that we learn at home as children. So I think my home life as a child was vitally important to my rightness, if it were, or as it were, or my appropriateness for Little House, because I had a very my upbringing had a lot in common with what we were portraying on Little House.
Okay, we have to take a break for the radio station's caller. I want to thank you for calling in, and you have a great weekend. Dean, we'll be right back right after this, so don't go anywhere. Go to our website and find out more information about Dean Butler at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com.
First, we are in the inner sanctum.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Deep in the Amazon jungle, one man.
Hi, I'm Stan Gordon. Check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, let me finish. One man.
Hi, I'm Mark Muncy. Check out Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, do you mind? One man, naked and afraid.
I'm losing my mind.
You and me both, sister. One man, Gary the Big Guy. No boats, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury.
Hey, any more and you'll have to pay a royalty.
Okay, that's it.
Hit it.
From the summer vacation studios deep in the Amazon jungle, from that tree right there. See at the top, he's swinging.
I'm losing my mind.
Twice? All right. Coming to you live, for now, on Night Dreams Talk Radio, naked and afraid, Gary the Big Guy Anderson.
And we are back with Dean Butler. I got to ask you a question. How long did it take you to write this book? And how did you have time to write the book when you were out doing what you were doing? Uh-huh.
Well, it was a very organized period of time, I have to tell you. So I made my agreement with Kensington Publishing at the end of 2022. On January 10th, 2023, I was at my dining room table at 5 a.m. with a hot cup of coffee and my computer on and my outline, and I just started page one. I mean, it's sort of what I've done as a producer for years. You start with a blank page and you put something down on it and you're off and running. So I started on January 10th and I turned in the first draft to Kensington on July 31st of 2023. And then it's just a matter of doing the tweaking. I mean, they told me, Gary, you can have this come out whenever you want, but we have to have it a year before it comes out. So I knew I wanted it to come out during this summer because, of course, this is the 50th anniversary summer of Little House, and I know that we're going to be out there a lot. And so it's a great thing to have a book at this time. So that was really the motivation to do it so quickly. You know, there are things that are not in the book that I wish were in the book. There are probably things in the book that I wish weren't in the book. You know, I mean, it's like it's a process, but I think you just have to get up in the morning and start writing. And some days it was 500 words, some days it's 1,000 words, some days I got 2,000 words, but I just started moving through it. And then my editor was following along behind me, clipping, shaping, refocusing things. And so we were writing and rewriting at the same time, basically. But I was doing the first draft myself and then trusting an editor. And, as someone who's worked with editors for years in production studios, I know that, that's part of the process. You need other people's eyes on something to shape it and really make it work. And I feel like I had a really solid person following along beside me. So I was very happy with that part of the process.
Wow. And, how's it going? I mean, I hear a lot of people have been buying it already.
Well, they're not telling me numbers, but it has been in the top 10 on Amazon and television books. It was number 1 in another category. It was number 73 in another category most recently. So people are buying the book, and we've been doing a lot of social media around the book. I've been doing interviews like this one, Gary, although nobody is quite like you. I've been doing interviews, all over the place for the last month talking about this. So, and then this next week, on the 25th is when the book is actually released, and I will have my first signing in Simi Valley, California on the 25th of June at the Open Book, and I'll be there, and hopefully people will be there who are interested in the book, and we'll just be off and running at that point.
Well, after you get done signing all those books, you're not going to be able to write anything for a month.
You mean because my hand's going to be...
Yeah, your hand's going to be like stiff.
Yeah. Well, I just have to take that chance. Well, I've been doing a lot of signing exercises, so I am ready to sign, Gary. I am ready to sign.
When people get me and they want my autograph, I make a beautiful X.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it's funny. My signature, because I've been doing it a particular way for so long, is pretty locked in, and I take pride in the fact that my signature, at least to my eye, is legible. You can tell that I'm actually writing Dean Butler. I have friends who sign their autograph, and I swear I know them. I'm sitting right in front of them. I have no idea that that's their name. And that mark, whatever that is supposedly their autograph. Someone can read my name when I sign my name, and that makes me feel good.
Well, it makes the person that gets the book feel good too.
I hope
they can
so.
say, "Hey, Dean Butler signed." Well, I don't know who signed it. Yeah.
Sign my book.
I also have spied on you on a lot of these podcasts you've been doing with your cohort.
Okay.
Has she been keeping you out of trouble?
Are you talking about my social media director?
No, I'm talking about the person that played Nellie.
Okay. You're watching our Little House 50 podcast with Allison Arngrim and Pamela Bob.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. I think Allison is just, and you've had her as a guest at least once, probably multiple times. Allison is a force of nature. She's
a bubble.
She's just amazing. She really is amazing. And I think Allison has identified herself with this nasty character, and she has a ton of fun with it. I think what you see with Allison as she has fun with this image is that she is really such a good person, and she has an absolute ball being nasty and being manipulative and doing all that. But the core of her is so good. And I think that's what makes the audience, I think the audience sees that she's having a little fun, and they come along with her because of that. She's a very special talent.
Oh, she's bubbly too. When I had her on, it was like, oh my God, I almost peed myself.
Well, you just have to say hello and she's off and running. I mean, it's just like, she'll run the hour for you. She could talk for the whole hour. You'd never have to say anything. But here's Allison, and thanks, Allison. You could start and finish with that, and you're done.
Or a week later, you're still talking.
And there you could be. Could be. Yeah, she's great. She's just great. We've been having a ton of fun doing this podcast, and it's been wonderful to interact with the audience, and yet another opportunity to interact with the audience and keep them informed about what we're doing and relive stories. It is the Little House. You can find it at littlehouse50podcast.com. Where I think we just did our 21st and 22nd or 22nd and 23rd shows. Now, that's nothing for you. You have probably done hundreds of shows. I don't know what number show this is.
No,
but,
about 1,500 on this one.
I mean, oh, wow. Yeah. So, we're just beginners. So, by the way, I want to compliment you. I think your production on the show, around all your billboards, the rejoins, all of that, really nicely done, Gary. It's very slick and it's fun. You establish a nice energy with the music you choose. It's very cool.
Well, thank you. I've been doing this 54 years. I mean, one of my first jobs, other than working in a car wash for $2.50 an hour, and then I got my first job at $2.75 an hour behind a microphone in a radio station. But
wow, really? And
I'm still doing it for $2.75 an hour.
There you go.
But
maybe a little less if you factor in all the hours you put in. Yeah, you can tell people who do this work and that they love it and that it is essential to who they are. Clearly, Gary, you are a communicator, and you are a communicator with a great sense of fun.
I try, even though I will tell you right now, I could not get my air conditioner working before the show. In the studio is at my house, which is all tore apart because we're having a new roof put on. And that's interesting. But it is 109 degrees in the studio right now, and I'm going to strip naked.
Is your camera on?
I don't have my camera on because people will see me in my underwear.
Yeah, you don't want to scare people away. Wow. So where do you live, Gary?
I'm in a place called Gig Harbor, Washington.
Okay, very good. Oh. And it's 109
No,
degrees?
In my studio, because I got 7 computers going, 2 servers, all the electronics in here, and it's a toaster oven.
Wow.
Now, is there going to be any bloopers on Little House on the Prairie? I love bloopers, and somebody was asking me that the other day. Is there any blooper reels out available?
There are bloopers, but most of our, in all candor, most of our bloopers are pretty blue. And Michael was pretty free with his language, doing things, so he would have fun with that. So there's a blooper reel that you can find on YouTube. It's out there, but there's not a lot that he allowed to be released. He just didn't want that.
Yeah, but I still love bloopers. But what are you doing now? What's your next assignment in entertainment?
Well, so I'm working on a documentary about women's basketball. It's really interesting. I mean, how this subject is evolving so quickly. I mean, the last 6 months of women's basketball with Caitlin Clark and this explosive NCAA women's final that for the first time in history had higher ratings than the men's NCAA basketball final has just transformed the WNBA and the women's game. I just think the women's game is in that Magic and Michael phase, the Bird and Magic. It's got all of that kind of thrill and excitement to it. So it's a big story. It's a very big story.
It sounds very interesting. So you're staying busy. I mean, is there anything going on this summer yet more about Little House on the Prairie?
Well, we're doing tons of appearances all over the country during this summer. I mean, from starting with the personal appearances that we each do individually, with cast appearances that we do in various sized groups, we go to different places. it's a pretty busy summer for us. I think, summer into the fall, I think we have about 15 appearances that are scheduled, which, is quite a bit. It's actually quite a bit between now and the end of the year. So we're not out every weekend, but I can tell you, I'm going to be looking for every little nook and cranny I can to be out there with this book during the summer and into the fall and so on. So I'm excited about that. That really is. I mean, I'm working on the basketball documentary, but right now, Gary, it's about this book. You only get one shot to launch this, and I've just got to do everything that I can and make myself as available as I can to support it, because I'm the one who has to sort of be at the center of that in order to make it work.
A lot of people nowadays don't realize what you have to do. One, get a book published. Two, is you have to do a lot of signings and appearances, doing what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, I'm just going to write the book. I'm going to have it printed by Amazon. I'm going to be famous. And then they wonder, why only 2 books sold? Well, they don't want to put the energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a very active involvement. You have to be hands-on all the way. And nothing, I mean, Gary, everyone who has done something like this, who is successful, knows that nothing just happens. You have to have your hands on it, and you have to be pushing it, nurturing it, helping it along every step of the way. And I think a book is particularly that way, and particularly as a first-time author. I mean, I'm very fortunate that we framed this around the 50th anniversary of Little House, so there is synergy around the program that allows me to, I can connect to people through that. The book can connect through Little House, the larger aspect of Little House, in order to help the book. But it's a process, no question. It's a big process.
But the thing is, you got a huge fan base yet, and that is what is going to be the turning point right there. I got to ask you, when you went back, before they even put the set in where they did the filming on location, what did it feel like when you're putting those flags in the ground and walking through that area where the road used to be and walking down where the set was? How did you feel?
Are you talking about when we did our reunion?
Yeah,
Oh, it was incredible. It was incredible. We put 12 facade fronts of beloved sets geolocated back exactly where they were. We recut roads into Walnut Grove. We did like 600 tons of road material in order to open up sections of this area. Big Sky Movie Ranch is a famous Southern California location for movies, for television, for commercials, for photo shoots, music videos, all kinds of things. Little House occupied a very specific section of this 7,000 plus acre property in the mountains around on the northeast side of Southern California, of Los Angeles. It was just incredibly special to see it. And Gary, the thing that was amazing was seeing the joy in people's faces, in their smiles, their just the tears that they had as they looked at these facades. Now, some of them, because of the limits of what we had a 15-foot height limit. So some of the buildings, like the Little House, was actually bigger than the actual Little House was as we rebuilt the facade. It looks great in the spot. But the barn, which was taller than the Little House, also has a 15-foot height limit. So the building appears to be smaller, but it's a beautiful recreation of the building. Beyond what we did at the ranch, which was just, I think, just extraordinary, we rebuilt the interiors of 3 sets. I mean, and really rebuilt them exactly to scale size and put them in a gymnasium in Simi Valley that we converted to look like a soundstage and feel like a soundstage. I tell you, Gary, when people walked in there and saw these sets, it was I have never been so proud of something I've been a part of as to see that joy in people's eyes. It was absolutely amazing. There were long lines to get into these things. I never heard about people complaining after they'd seen what they'd seen. It was magical. It was a weekend of Little House love, unlike anything any of us had experienced in 40 years. Include fans, cast, everybody involved. It was an extraordinary weekend.
Oh, I bet. I've seen some video clips of where the people went into like the fireplace and everything.
Yeah,
in that one,
all that.
it just people broke down emotionally when they saw it because it was so realistic of the real thing.
Yeah, it really was. I just could not have been prouder of our builder and our props crew that had to go out and find all these things. And, you know, because none of this existed. This all had to be literally, there were no blueprints to build from. These blueprints were created from screen grabs of people who studied the sets and scaled the blueprints that they made based on their known, the fact that we knew that Michael Landon was 5'10" tall. And so the scale was built around his 5'10". So everything was built so that he would have fit in it just right. It was an amazing exercise in creative invention. It was remarkable, and people loved it.
Oh, I know. And again, when I was watching those video clips of it, watching the people, like you mentioned, lined up to get into it. Now, I know I asked this last time you were on, you know, when he decided he didn't want to have any of the set be used in any other movie or TV show.
Right.
How did you guys feel when he decided he was going to give it a country style blowjob?
Yeah. I thought it was, you know, typically brilliant of Michael to turn something that was going to be a necessity. I mean, the land, not only did he not want people to shoot on it, that's one part of it, but contractually, he had to take the sets away. The company had to remove them at the end. So either you're going to just knock them down and put them in trucks, or in Michael's inventive mind, I can turn this into production value, and he crafted the story that gave him the end of the series and allowed him to get all of that incredible footage of this place that was beloved going up in smoke and just being blown to bits. It's amazing footage. None of us saw it actually happen because we couldn't be there for it. In one day, we push the plunger, another day it explodes, and the third day we go back and the smoke is rising, and we all walk through town singing Onward Christian Soldiers. It was a very moving experience. It was typically inventive of Michael. He didn't want to have to go back to it. He didn't want to have to be in a place where he'd have to say, all right, we'll rebuild it again. Walnut Grove is still there, and we can pick up where we left off. He didn't want that. He was done. And I think from my perspective, I think from a lot of people's perspective who are involved in it, Gary, I think he made a great decision. I think he'd said everything that he wanted to say and needed to say as in the context or through these 10 years. And it lives as this wonderful time capsule. And as the show's ongoing distribution shows, it just continues to work. And so all that love that he put into it continues to touch people, draw them in, and give them an opportunity to experience something that's really special.
Well, you know, I think there was only like one killing in the whole years it was on, a gunfight or something, if I remember right, or something happened. But I mean, that's one thing he did. It was family values and every episode was based on family values and love.
Well, there's that. And then he also touched and yes, that is always at the core, but then he also threaded through a lot of contemporary issues that people were dealing with, whether it be drug abuse, obesity, child abandonment.
Being blind.
All these things that he covered, but he framed them in this little house world, and it made them very accessible, and he could make it very warm and meaningful for people. And
he did a very good job.
He did.
Again, where are you going to be with your books? Can you tell the listeners where you're going to be, signing?
Okay, so just in the next couple of days or next week, I will be in Simi Valley, California at the Open Book from 12 to 3. And the Open Book, if you're in Southern California, is in Simi Valley on Cochrane. I'm sorry, I do not have the address right in front of me, but the Open Book is easy to find. On Thursday night, the 27th, I will be at Barnes & Noble at the Grove in West Hollywood in Los Angeles, beautiful shopping mall. I'll be there from 7 to 9. I'll be in San Diego with the American Library Association on Friday, the 28th. And then in July, we start our big summer push that begins with Walnut Grove on the 19th, 20th, and 21st of July in the real Walnut Grove in Minnesota. And that's really the first big Little House event where I will have the book. And then we're just moving, we're every couple of weeks, we're out after that. If you want to find out about it, you can follow me at Official Dean Butler. I'm on Facebook, on Instagram, and TikTok. And then you can always search for Little House Cast events, and a company called Gravel Road Markets will come up. And our schedule is really well published and promoted there. If you're in our area during the weekend where we are in a specific location, from Minnesota, Tennessee, Arkansas, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Missouri, through the rest of the year, we hope you'll come out and see us.
I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people for those signings. So get prepared for it. Get some, like Geritol, and get something, hand lotion, and for your hands don't get all.
I'm working my hands, Gary.
Okay, and again, you got out doing the dishes tonight, didn't you?
I did, but I got to talk to you. So it's and Catherine's okay. She understands.
Well, Dean, I want to thank you so much to come back on the show. I'm kind of strange, so it might wreck your reputation.
Gary, you're awesome. You're awesome. Thank you so much. You do a very unique program. So thank you for having me.
Okay, my friend, you take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, JC, what are you going to be doing this weekend?
I'm not sure yet. I've got a lot of things. Maybe some bass fishing, maybe some ghost hunting.
You're going to do bass fishing?
Bass fishing and ghost hunting. What a combination.
Yeah, well, you might be somebody doing ghost hunting if you eat any of that bass this time of year.
No, I don't eat I just catch and release.
Well, have you ever thought about getting an aquarium and get some huge goldfish and catch them and release them back into it?
I've thought about,
get a pond. We got a pond. But what's really bad is we got this owl. And we had to put netting on it, and it figured out how to take the netting off. And then we got raccoons and possum and, the cats all down the neighborhood, up and down. They like our pond. And so you go out there, we start out, with 30 fish, and then we're down to 3.
Yeah, that's like a dinner bell buffet to all the animals around there for sure. I bet even that all your animals and wild ones, for sure, they'll eat them.
Yeah. Again, what I don't like is having the studio out of my house. It is like today, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're getting a new roof put on. That's new sheeting, plywood, the whole everything, some new joists. And when you got 2 Great Danes and a German Shepherd and a cat and birds, my wife has a lot of birds. They're all going at it because of the banging. And can you imagine 9 hours of nonstop barking?
And 9 hours nonstop banging and barking on top of. That's a lot of banging and barking.
I got a bad headache.
Oh, I bet. And then you got to add in the factor of 100+ degrees.
It's 110 right now in the studio because my air conditioner wouldn't work.
Yeah, those are dangerous. You're in dangerous territory there, Mr. Gary.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in the desert of Reno.
You're going to start hallucinating here pretty soon.
Well, I do that quite often on the show.
You're going to start seeing mirages.
or something.
Yeah,
But again, we're going to talk about this new snake species they found. I think it was copperhead or something like that. I was just reading it, and they don't have a anti-venom for it. And
No.
and they said if you get bit, it'll kill you like within 20 minutes.
Oh, easy. And that's the thing. If it's a new species, like I said earlier, they haven't had time to even cultivate and make anti-venom out of it. And that's what you would need. That's the other thing, too. People don't realize this because you get bit by a snake. And I think even when you're in the military, they told you got to know what snake it is or kill it and bring it.
That's what they say. You kill it and bring it to the medic, no matter how many times you get bit. But what's really bad about this, again, if you get bit, you got about a 20-minute. But again, what's also interesting about this fish, what am I thinking? Because you going fishing, the snake is one of the most aggressive of rattlesnakes, coppers, all those. They said it's extremely more aggressive.
Oh, listen, cottonheads or cottonmouths rather, they're already kind of aggressive. At least some of them I've come across. But if this one's more aggressive, then that's another log on the fire. No, thank you, sir.
I don't know. In our state, on eastern Washington, they got poisonous snakes. On our side, they say, "Oh, there's no poisonous snakes." But guess what? Somebody got bit here last week in Tacoma area by a rattlesnake.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. There's no invisible line that these snakes I can't cross that. Plus, you know how snakes get carried across states and cars. They get in cars and they drop off. You know how many snakes can get in vehicles? People don't even know how easy it is to go from one end of your state to the other, and there they are.
Yeah, you open up to change your oil, and there's a rattlesnake right there.
Exactly. I opened mine up, checked the oil the other day, and there was a kitten in there. Okay?
Well, again, we went, on the app side, we're pulling in about 1 million downloads per episode. And I never, like I was telling people last week, I never really put any effort into YouTube. But, back about a little over a month ago, I decided, just like Dean said, you got to put effort into something. So I decided after a couple years, we were only at 2,040 people. I was kind of ashamed when people would say, well, how many people you got on your YouTube channel? And, I got 2,040. Well, doing a talk show is not like how to get rich on YouTube, how to get more subscribers on YouTube, which will go viral, or how to lose 50 pounds in 2 weeks. I mean, those things go viral. Doing a talk show, it takes forever. But something clicked here. This is a little over a month ago. We're close to 41,000 subscribers, and it's growing like 1,000 a day, at least.
Yeah, and plus, when we started out here, the YouTube didn't start with all the other apps. That was something that was about half the time. You know what I mean? You haven't been on it maybe half as long, if that.
Yeah, and then when we had our last guest on Friday, Thomas Jane. It's like 27,000 downloads.
Yeah, it's pushing 28. Actually, yeah, it's getting right up there. It's been growing and growing. Listen, they loved it when Thomas was on, and Jeff Harmon too.
And Thomas is going to come back again. I think in August, isn't he?
He is. Matter of fact, let me just get a peek at that date. Matter of fact, he is coming back on. He had a great time. He loves coming on our show. We love having him on here. He's coming middle of August. He'll be back.
His TV show just got re-signed up for another year, another season.
Listen. Yeah, that one show is going to be released. Topper is going to be season 2.
It's not Topper. It's Tops or something like that. It's not Topper.
Yeah, Topper. It's Topper. Season 2 is coming in July. I watched season 1 last year. I love that show. It's out of Australia.
Yeah. So I mean, we do have some famous people on the show.
Yeah, a couple of them. One or two now and again, you're right. And listen, we've got other stars and kind of famous people. We got Jerry Joel coming on toward the end of July. Actually, next week, next Friday. She was on Deadwood. She's been in a lot of movies, too. Remember Deadwood?
Yeah. Yeah, and then we have Rita Lee coming back on. She was scheduled to be on about a month ago, and then she was taken to the hospital. Thank God. It was nothing serious because she is a joy.
just a few, not what I think, a half hour before air time. So we was all kind of up in the air. We didn't know what was going on, and that was scary. We didn't know. And, you know who else we got coming on?
Who else do we have? We know what we need to do is get Bobby Mackey back on.
Well, I can tell you who's going to come on.
Okay, who's going to come on?
The first week of July, as a second guest, Mr. William Kegg's coming on. You know what he is?
No, who is he?
He has all the inside scoop, Gary, on all the stars. You know, the gossip, the scoop, facts.
All the skinny on him, huh?
Yeah, the skinny or the fat, if you will. Yeah, yes.
You know, they canceled the Magnum. You know that.
What happened?
Magnum PI was just canceled.
Oh, you know what? I never really watched that show.
You didn't watch? I liked the original one.
Yeah, that was, and that's the other thing you kind of touched on. They're rebooting all these old shows. Why they just not keep making them? Some of these shows are rebooting haven't been off the air more than a couple years.
Well, yeah, again, like Little House on the Prairie. Seriously, you know, I'll be honest with you. I mean, a lot of the shows you watch them, and honestly, it turns my stomach what I have to watch because it's not a lot of love and compassion and values anymore in TVs and movies. You know, it's all on, you know, these horror type of movies or bloody movies, you know, like The Walking Dead. Now they got the new sequel. I was watching that, and blood is flying more than it did on the original one, believe it or not. And people are into that. What is wrong with watching a show that you get to know the characters and it has family values in it? You know, like Little House on the Prairie, they touched on so many things, you know, from the blind school to all kinds of things of love, hate, you name it. It was all there. And what was going on in society was kind of interpreted and put into the show. And we don't have that anymore.
No, no. Technology is slowly taking it away and dumbing us down and desensitizing us on a lot of things. And add another 10, 20 years to it will be even worse, Gary, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're going to jump out of here because, you know, that's another thing. Chat. People need to start getting on chat, or I'm going to turn the chat off on YouTube. I'm going to be honest with you. Because, you know, with 40-some thousand subscribers, you know, and the people, we need to work on getting the chat built up and talk about what the subject of the show is about with the guests and all that.
Absolutely. We've got a lot of great topics, a lot of great guests. Keep that chattering going.
Well, that's what helps pay for the show, too. And a lot of people don't realize that. Also, your show this coming Wednesday, you have a person who was abducted by aliens. What's that all about?
Yeah, not the ones south of the border. These are the ones that come like from north up in the air. And yeah, she's a lifelong experiencer, Nancy Timms. So make sure you catch the show 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time on Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. And if you go to the Spreaker app, you can chat and ask questions in real time.
Yeah, and he might even look at it and answer.
Yes, I will.
Well, till next Wednesday with JC the Hitman, me next Thursday and Friday. I want to say to all the people worldwide, from the Philippines to Indonesia to Malaysia, Vietnam, India, Argentina, Mexico, the UK, Ireland, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada. Oh boy, we might not own the night, but we own the time zones, I can tell you that. So we'll catch you on Thursday. Everybody have a good one. Stay out of trouble, will you?
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, and then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Looking for Bigfoot or UFO-themed merchandise? Look no further. Explore Night Dreams Talk Radio's store for an array of paranormal goodies, from t-shirts to mouse pads to socks to whatever the heck that thing is. Don't miss out on these unique items. Check us out today at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. While you're checking out the cool merchandise, go to the latest news tab to find out what's going on in the world and outside the world. Again, go to